What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Most of you guys know that I recently picked up a brand new 392 Hemi transmission, transfer case, radiator, a bunch of stuff in order to do a Hemi swap into my 2010 Jeep Wrangler. Most of you also know that I love doing video series. In the past, we did a 1-ton swap video series, the DIY long arm, front and rear. We've done a bunch of really cool projects, and now it's time to do a Hemi swap video series for you Jeep Wrangler JK owners. So this first episode, it's gonna be a lot of talking, I'm not gonna lie, but it's a lot of good info to those of you who are looking to do this swap at home by yourself. We're gonna go over a bunch of different options. You don't have to use the big 392 Hemi, you can use the 5.7. There's also 4 different transmissions to choose from, and there's a lot of other things we need to consider before starting this project. There's different routes you can take depending on your budget and your needs. So with that being said, let's get this video started. Before I start talking your ear off with a bunch of information, let's talk real quick about what I have here in the garage. Most of you guys saw the video where I picked this up, a brand new 6.4 liter Hemi with pretty much everything on it. We have a wiring harness, we have all of the front accessories, so our power steering pump, our water pump, alternator, AC compressor, all of that good stuff already on there. 0 miles. We also have a NAG1 transmission. We have, it's built, everything there. We have a Rubicon transfer case, bolt-in motor mounts, a CSF aluminum radiator. Quite a deal for $10,000. Now, sadly, I can't use a lot of this. This is set up for a 2012 up JK. I have a 2010, which means a lot of this is not gonna be usable. Right off the bat, you're like, Ben, you got a pretty bad deal. Not really. First off, I can sell a lot of this stuff and recoup a ton of money. Second off, these 392 Hemis brand new are already kind of expensive without all of the accessories. Thirdly, it's a great way for me to show you guys your different options on this swap, and instead of me just throwing this in the Jeep, you guys can learn a lot and hopefully do this swap at home just like me. So with that being said, you can kind of see, you're like, oh man, there's a lot of different options then, huh? How do I know if I'm getting the right part? Hopefully that's what this video is going to solve. I know a lot of you guys have dreamed of having a V8 swap. In the past, they're pretty expensive. You know, most of these swaps that you see people have are done by a shop. You're looking at $30,000. If you do it yourself, you can bring the price down a little bit. We're gonna talk about all of your different options, but it's still gonna be quite an expensive swap. So first off, let's grab the board and see what our different engine and transmission options are. All right, guys, it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty where we're gonna talk about a bunch of info on how you can do this swap. Bear with me, it's not gonna take too long. So, our 2 best engine choices if you're looking to do a Hemi V8, it's gonna be the 6.4 or the 5.7. We're gonna talk a little bit about the pros and cons of each. So, if you wanna do the big boy engine, the 392, you're gonna wanna find the LX car style engine. So that's, you know, in your Chargers, your Challengers, all of those style. We really don't want to use the truck-based 6.4 Hemi for this swap. This engine is going to be found 2010 and up, so you can buy these engines used, you can buy them new, really whatever your budget allows. The 6.4 is going to put out 485 horsepower and 475 foot-pounds of torque. Guys, that's insane. That is a ton of power. So if you're looking to do the 6.4 liter swap, make sure you have other upgrades that can handle all that power. So, you know, your drivetrain, your axles, all of that stuff needs to be able to handle that increased power supply from your engine. For those of you that don't exactly need 485 horsepower and want to keep this a little more budget friendly, that's where the 5.7 comes in. They're a lot easier to find. We're gonna find these in the 09 to 2020 Ram 1500s. They still put out 395 horsepower and 410 foot-pounds of torque. So that is still a huge upgrade from our factory Jeep engines. Plus, they are easier to find and they're a little bit cheaper. So right off the bat, you have 2 really good solid options that aren't too hard to find. Now, transmissions, this is where it gets tricky. We have 4 different transmission options to choose from, and we're gonna break that down later depending on the year of your Jeep Wrangler. So we're gonna start off with the 545 RFE. This was found from 05 to 2010. It's a 4-speed transmission. Now, in the past, this was the only automatic transmission that could be used in the 07 to 11 JKs. This transmission, it's really not the best option. It is a weaker transmission, and paired with the 392, the 545 can't handle the increased power of the 392. It's right on that threshold. So the 545, I wouldn't really recommend that transmission for this swap. But in the past, that was one of our only options. Now, the next one, the WA580, otherwise known as the NAG1, that's what most of you guys have in your Jeeps right now. 2012 and up JKs with the automatic transmission have this NAG1. It is a great transmission. It can handle a lot of power. It's a 5-speed. And honestly, it's been in swaps since 2012. It's a great transmission. That is what's sitting right here. Now, if you do want to reuse your factory Jeep automatic transmission, you're gonna have to do a few things. We need a new bell housing, we need a new torque converter, and there's a few other things we have to do to that transmission to make it work with either the 392 or the 5.7. Still, that is a great option for those of you that wanna do either one of these swaps, whether you already have this transmission in your Jeep or you know somebody who's selling one, like I am. The next one, a lot of people, there's always those 6-speed fans out there. Oh, keep it manual. The G-Trag 238. It's a 6-speed manual, which is gonna work behind both of the Hemi engines. Is it the best option? I do not think so. This is putting out a lot of power. I wouldn't really wanna put a 6-speed manual behind it, but there are a ton of huge 3-pedal fans out there that won't touch any swap unless it has a manual. That's your option. Now, there is one more option that kind of beats them all, and that is the 8-speed transmission. Most of you guys know that the JL Wrangler and the JT Gladiator came out with the 8-speed transmissions. They are phenomenal. You're always in the right torque curve. It's a great transmission. But in the past, the Hemi swaps, the 8-speed wasn't an option. Now there is. We can use an 8 HP 70 out of a 13 to 17 Dodge Ram 1500. We have to make sure we have the 4x4 transmission so we can hook a transfer case up to it. And there's some other twists we have to do, but that's the route I'm going. So that is a huge game changer right there. An 8-speed transmission in a JK with a Hemi swap. That's what I'm doing in this build series. It's gonna be phenomenal. So to kind of recap the transmissions, the two that I would recommend would be the 8-speed and the NAG1. So right off the bat, if you're somebody who has an 07 to 11 JK, you can't use the NAG1, so your two choices are the 545 or the 8-speed. Right off the bat, boom, 8-speed. So for you 07 to 11 guys, my highest recommendation, if you're doing a Hemi swap, is to do the 8-speed like I'll be doing in this video series. For you 2012 and up JK owners, your two options, your best option is gonna be keep your NAG1 or upgrade to the 8-speed. Boom. Now for you 2012 and up manual owners, if you already have that 6-speed in the Jeep, I wouldn't really make the switch to the NAG1, I would go straight to the 8-speed. So there's a lot of different choices. If you already have the NAG1 transmission automatic, it might be cheaper to keep that. But if you don't have that transmission already, your best upgrade is going to be the 8-speed. It's gonna handle the power, it's gonna shift perfect, and overall it's a very well-built transmission. All right, lots of talking. Next up, we have the transfer case. This is also kind of depend on what transmission you run. Now, there's two different transfer cases. We have the Rubicon and we have the non-Rubicon. The Rubicon is gonna be a 4-to-1 gear ratio, where the Sport's gonna be a 2.72 to 1. Benefits of these on your factory Jeep engine. The Rubicon transfer case is great for off-road, rock crawling, really low gear ratio. The Sport, it does fine. But if we were to pair the 8-speed, which has a really, really low first gear already, we don't really need the Rubicon transfer case. We could use the Sport one because overall it's gonna kind of equal out due to the lower transmission gear ratio opposed to the transmission gear ratio, or the transfer case gear ratio. Hopefully you're staying with me here. I know it's a lot of information. There's also a difference between these two models. So you can have a Rubicon transfer case, but there's two different models of it. There's one that has a female input shaft, and there's one that has a male input shaft. We have to make sure we get the correct one depending on our transmission. Now, if you have a NAG1 and you already have your transfer case, keep them the same. If you're somebody like me who has a 2010 Jeep Wrangler with a Rubicon transfer case and a manual transmission, that's gonna work perfect with the 8-speed swap. But we'll talk a little bit about that later when we pop the transfer case off, and I can show you guys the differences between the male and female input shafts. Next up, I'm very general, basic recommendations on doing this swap. So either way, whether you go with the 6.4 or the 5.7, they're both great options for both year JKs. We're gonna start off with the 07 to 11 guys. Once again, 6.4 or 5.7, they both make a lot of power. 5.7 is gonna be cheaper. Now, if you have an 07 to 11, here's what I would recommend. Use the 8-speed transmission, the 8 HP 70, great transmission, and it's gonna be a little more cost effective opposed to switching to a different transmission. If you're using the 8-speed transmission, I would recommend the Sport transfer case. Otherwise, you're gonna be geared very, very, very low off-road. Now, for those of you that have the 2012 and up, well, let's go back a second. I'm gonna be using the Rubicon transfer case because that really, really low gear is gonna be sick for rock crawling. But Sport transfer case would probably be a little bit better, but I already have a Rubicon transfer case, keeps the price down. Now, for you 2012 and up JK owners, once again, the 6.4 or the 5.7s are both gonna be great options. If you already have the Nag 1, I'd probably keep it. If you have a bunch of money to burn, the 8-speed upgrade would be awesome. And if you are staying with the Nag 1, stay with the Ruby transfer case. Once again, if you're going to the 8-speed, you can get away with both. So, lots of information here. I'm gonna try to type this out in the video description so you can kind of see what fits your needs best. But the great thing about Hemi swaps is whether you do the 6.4 or the 5.7, you can buy them brand new. You can go to a junkyard and find that engine. I talked about the years right here. So if you're looking for the most budget-friendly Hemi swap, find a 5.7 out of a 1500, anywhere from 09 to 2020. You can find them pretty cheap. Try to stay low miles so you don't have to rebuild them. Then find an 8 HP 70 8-speed transmission from a 2013 to 2017 Dodge Ram 4-wheel drive. Boom. All that talking's over. Wasn't that bad, was it, guys? So, what do I have here? It's the wrong setup for my Jeep, which means we are going to have to pull off this transmission, pull off this transfer case, and pop on the new one. So, let's take a look at what we got here. About a week ago, I found an 8-speed transmission. Got this on eBay. Man, we're already 10 minutes in. Sorry, guys. This is the 8 HP 70 transmission. As you can tell, I don't know what to show you guys, but it looks pretty new. This has 30,000 miles on it. Picked it up for like 600 bucks. Not bad at all. We are gonna ditch this this is like the transmission cooler and heater setup. It actually heats the transmission fluid up, you know, to get to temp and then cools it down when it's too hot. We're getting rid of that. But the big thing to look for is this 4-wheel drive adapter bracket right here. We want to make sure we don't have the 2-wheel drive version. Just get the 4-wheel drive version, it's not too hard. We also have the factory torque converter. Make sure you buy that, otherwise it's an added expense. We're looking for this little nub here on the corner. That means it's the correct transmission. We are good to go. Also have some stuff over here. We're gonna be using a Challenger 8-speed shifter, where that's gonna be kind of cool in the JK. So, lots of talking, I know. And this is gonna be a really, really in-depth series. There's a lot of stuff to go over, guys. But we're gonna step back 1 second, and you're probably wondering, Ben, I've never heard of anybody doing an 8-speed swap into their JK. Jeep Speed Shop, based out of California, came up with a kit in order to run your engine and 8-speed. They also sell a bunch of different stuff for this swap. Jeep Speed Shop is one of the better like DIY Hemi swap shops out there. There's a lot of other great companies. You know, you have America's Most Wanted, you have Dakota Customs, there's a bunch of other, you know, sub places where they can install your Hemi for you using those based kits from America's Most Wanted or Dakota Customs. You know, if I was just to drop my Jeep off and get a Hemi installed, I would take it up to JK Land and have them do it, give them the money, drive home in a brand new Hemi swap JK. But I know there's a lot of you out there that want to do it yourself, and that's where Jeep Speed Shop's gonna come in. I'm gonna go ahead and say their website isn't the best. They do have a ton of information, but when you first look at it, it's a little hard to understand, hey, what do I need? What are my different options? And that's what this video is helping you out with. So, I'm gonna be using a bunch of parts from Jeep Speed Shop, including their 8-speed kit. We do have to buy our engines separately and the transmissions, but he has a full kit for the 8-speed. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff which we're gonna cover in future videos. But most of you guys didn't know that the 8-speed was an option. Jeep Speed's done about 40 of them, I think. So it's awesome that they make a good kit for those of us that wanna move up to the 8-speed instead of using some of those other, you know, not so good transmissions. I know that was a lot of talking. Let's get to some actions. We're gonna go ahead, hoist up this engine and get this transmission out of here.
To get a good view of what you're doing now.
Yeah. Right now, just unbolting the torque converter. This is the Nag 1 torque converter. Well, it's an upgraded torque converter for the Nag 1, which will be going with the transmission I'm selling. So, okay, there we go. All right, set that down. Normally these would be filled with fluid, but brand new. Put that on there.
All right, so we got the engine and transmission separated. Now would be the time to bolt up the 8-speed to our engine. Sadly, I'm waiting on some parts. So what we need to bolt up the 8-speed, the HP70, to this 392 is a few things. One, we need the transmission. Two, we need the intermediate plate or dust cover, whatever you want to call it. It's a little metal, like gasket, washer, whatever you want to call it, that goes between the engine and the transmission. This one will not work because this is cut out for the Nag 1 transmission. So I am waiting on the correct part to come in for the 8-speed before we can bolt it up to the engine. Now, few key things. My transmission did not come with the torque converter bolts. This torque converter will bolt up to the flex plate on there. Only thing we need, if you don't have them already, is the correct size bolts. These are the same bolts as the Nag 1, so I simply stole them from the Nag 1 setup. But if you don't have bolts, you can buy these. You can buy the ARP ones, you can buy cheaper ones designed for the Nag 1 transmission, and they'll work in there. So waiting on that intermediate plate and waiting on a starter. So this is where things kind of get a little bit tricky. Since we're moving to an 8-speed from a Ram, means we also need a new starter from a Ram, that new intermediate plate from a Ram, and kind of everything from the engine back is gonna be for a Ram. So starter, get it from a Ram that has the 5.7. Intermediate plate, Ram from a 5.7. All of this and pretty much everything I go through in this video, the whole video series, I'm gonna put links in the video description, part numbers, that way you guys don't get lost trying to figure out parts because it can be a little difficult. Now, before we put that 8-speed in, we need to verify one thing on the engine, on the crank itself. So down in here where the torque converter sits, you see how there's like another little bushing in there that looks like a race right in there. We want to make sure that's in there. With the Nag 1, if the Nag 1 was on here, it would already, that's already in there. For the other transmissions, like the 545 RFE, that inside sleeve would not be there. So we'd have to put a new one in to make sure our 8-speed sits in there. So whenever it comes time to put your transmission in, just make sure that little smaller washer, bushing, whatever you want to call it, is inside your crank. You'll be good to go. Everything will bolt right up. Trying to think about what else needs to be talked about in this video. This is kind of just the beginning stages, getting everything ready. But for those of you that are thinking of doing this swap, the easiest way to get to where I'm at, and the cheapest, would be to buy a used 5.7 out of a 2013 up to 2017 Dodge Ram, or just Ram 1500. Hopefully you can find the 5.7 with low miles and already have the correct 8 HP70 8-speed transmission attached with 4-wheel drive. You don't need the transfer case, but if you can find the 5.7 combo with the 8-speed and 4-wheel drive, that is a golden ticket. You're good to go. You can buy that and everything's kind of already set up for you. One big thing, parts start adding up when you have to start buying all of these front accessories. So this engine has everything on there. What I'm talking about is, like, you know, your power steering, alternator, all of that stuff. That price adds up quick. Now, Jeep Speed Shop, if you go to his website, there's a build of materials list. Go down to your engine and it has all the part numbers for everything you'll need for this swap, which helps out a bunch. They're all Mopar part numbers, so you can either get them on eBay used, you can get, you know, any of those Mopar websites, or you can go to a junkyard and grab them for cheap. So there's a lot of different ways to do this swap, budget friendly. So with that being said, that's about it for this video, guys. We still have to rip all of this off and get the correct wiring harness. Right now, this wiring harness is for 2012 and up, which means I have to get a new wiring harness for 07 to 11 Jeeps. Also from Jeep Speed Shop, he's sending that out, as well as a new ECM for this swap. So we have a lot more to talk about in future videos. That is it for this one, guys. Please stay tuned. We have a lot of cool stuff coming. And, you know, more in-depth videos where we're actually putting this in the engine. So for now, please give the video a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, go down, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. Would you do a 392 or would you do a more budget 5.7 swap? or would you do an LS swap? That's something I didn't really talk about. The original plans for the Jeep was to do an LS swap. You know, from 07 to 11 Jeeps, LS swaps are a little easier, but for you guys with 2012s and up, you pretty much have to just buy a full kit from like RPM Extreme, and me doing a budget LS swap on the JK would only help a handful of people, whereas a Hemi swap, anybody can be helped. No matter what year JK you have, Hemi swaps will work. So I will see you guys later. Please give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you later. Peace.